and welcome to podcast number 4. We're here for another week, another podcast with me, your host, Alex Lewis. I'm sat in the car, it is cracking flags, and it's a gorgeous Saturday late morning. Just watched Saturday Kitchen, love that programme. Apologies in advance if you hear some banging noises, not banging of that variety, but there is, the next door neighbour is doing his patio. So apologies about that if that comes through. I've got a lot to get through in this podcast. In this podcast, what you're going to hear is you're going to hear a clip of a radio interview that I did. More on that in a moment. I just want to kind of kick things off by saying thank you for your support. Podcast 3 sort of blew things out the water, really, for me. It was strangely cathartic. I've been saying that word all week on messaging, but I still don't really know how to say it, how to pronounce it. It was strangely kind of relaxing and soothing for me, having it all out in the open about my gambling addiction, and it really was like a massive weight off my shoulders. So I just want to say, thank you for your support. I received well over 50 messages from friends, from family, from strangers as well. So, I've replied to every single message. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll see that on a Monday morning or Tuesday, whatever, I like to kind of screen grab and just show people the messages. So, thank you for all of your support. It has been very overwhelming, actually. And there was a couple of messages that actually made me well up. A couple of close friends who basically just didn't have a clue that I was sort of knees deep in the gambling addiction. So yes, I just want to do a couple of shout outs to Louis. Your message was particularly heartfelt, mate. As I say, did have a little bit of a cry, and Ashley as well. If you're listening, mate, we know each other from Nana Marge. So yeah, the podcast had loads of plays. It's had over 500 plays across all the different platforms, which is just crazy for me. So I think my target was to raise awareness about problem gambling, and I am happy to say that I think I achieved that. And I really appreciate you having a listen to it. A few people have kind of got in touch and sort of said, "Oh yeah, I've seen there's quite a few gambling adverts on TV or things like that." I think basically we have been able to raise awareness about problem gambling. It is a taboo subject, and not a lot of people talk about it. Not a lot of people really know about it. It's still quite a kind of recent new thing. For example, like, I've got a friend who's a I'm just terrible with my words, a nurse, about mental health. And she said, is it okay to share this amongst my colleagues? Yes, absolutely, it is. Please share it. Please, not just for her, but for you, for your friend, share it with others, because I think it hopefully just really highlights and hammers home that this is a real issue to do with mental health. And just a reminder that only in 2013 was gambling or problem gambling seen as the same addiction as drugs and alcohol. Only in 2013. This is new territory. So please share it with others so they can hear the story. And hopefully the main aim is it helps someone out there, basically, to say that you're not alone. I've got lots to get through in this kind of section before we come on to the interview in a moment. Just another reminder that basically this podcast is available on Spotify. I've had lots of listens on Spotify, so keep it going, guys. It's obviously good on Spotify because you can continue to do other things on your phone, and you can continue to listen. It's now also available on Google Podcasts, so that's especially good if you've got an Android phone. Apparently, I don't have an Android phone, but that's what I'm told. And there's a few other places you can get hold of it. The podcast, I don't actually know any of these really sort of websites, but I'll put them all in the link on the YouTube. Yes, this week you might have seen me release a sort of silly video, a phone box review. This is this is really kind of random. Hopefully, just bringing you a little bit of joy, a bit of cheer. To the during lockdown. I was going to say, please do like, comment, and subscribe to what I'm doing. because obviously it helps the algorithms kind of know what's good. But in saying that, if I'm releasing like gambling podcasts, but silly videos, YouTube is having a bit of a hissy fit, 'cause it's like, what? You know, some people are going to like the podcast, some people are going to like the silly videos. But anyway, yeah, do like, comment and subscribe. It's at the moment, you know, this is not for financial gain. It's just to, I think, entertain myself really during lockdown, and hopefully entertain you, the listeners, the viewers. And you know, essentially the gambling thing is just to spread the message. So, already repeating myself again. God, I've got verbal diarrhea. I've realised I've only got like a minute or two to kind of get all of this stuff out. So I've got my laptop. I've actually made show notes on my laptop, given the importance, or in my opinion, the importance of this, because it's crazy. Because, you know, initially this was a podcast just for like friends and family, and now it's starting to reach people that are not friends and family. So if you're new to the channel, if you're new to the podcast, hello, welcome. You're listening to a crazy guy in his car talk about lots of issues. Anyway, a couple of things. Basically, well, it was quite topical. Going back to the gambling, released the podcast on Sunday, and on Monday, talk about like random or coincidence or good timing. On the Monday, the government announced that it was to ban gambling adverts from betting companies on TV and radio. So The Guardian released an article. I got sent that article from a friend, and I was like, what? Is this like, what are the chances of this? You know, releasing a podcast and having this come out on the Monday. So basically, a little bit more about that. The Betting and Gaming Council are going to ban gambling adverts, or basically they're going to display safe messages. Interestingly, this week I was like, yeah, but they're not banned, because if you watch TV, there's still gambling adverts online, on telly. But basically, it comes in from effect on the 7th of May to at least the 5th of June. So I feel like something as good is kind of coming out of all this. So it's the Betting and Gaming Council, and they represent 90% of betting companies in the UK. So kind of the biggies, really, the big companies. However, I would say a little bit of a caveat to that is that actually you can still receive like social media marketing, text messages, and emails, and even postal adverts as well. So, you know, there's good things out of it, but is it a bit too late? And actually, on that, basically, I couldn't believe it. TalkRadio, a national radio channel, I think related to sister channel of TalkSport, also related to, I think, or owned or something like by Virgin Radio. Sorry, I've just had a coffee, a little bit hyper. Basically, they picked up on it. They saw the podcast and they got in touch with me. I think mainly because they were obviously scratching around for actual content. They saw the Guardian article that had come out, so they wanted to do an interview with me. They got in touch, and so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to like clip on the interview. So for the rest of the podcast, you can listen to me talk to the host Daryl about a little bit more about my story. So you can have a listen to that. Just finally, one more thing. I want to say that I'm going to be doing an upcoming series on gambling, podcast series about gambling. I think this is actual stuff that is going to stick. Yes, I can do my silly videos. That's great fun. I love doing them, but they're just, you know, kind of throwaway videos. Like, yeah, great, that was great. This has actually got legs. I feel like this is now actually starting to become a bit more of my mission. Certainly with the podcast anyway, you know, talking about real issues, real life stories that actually matter. So what I'd like you to do, I'm going to invite you to please submit your questions to me about gambling. I've had lots of questions already, things like, you know, how did you give up? What help did you get? When did it become a problem? Lots of different things. If you've got a question that you'd like me to cover in the gambling series, please could you submit it over the next week or two. You can write me a comment on YouTube, you can send me a message on Instagram, etc, etc. So yeah, please get those questions in. I need them in really within this week, because I'm going to start sort of getting preparations underway to do this bit of work that hopefully is going to be impactful. Anyway, this intro has been pretty big. I said to myself, right, I'll do this for 7 minutes. I can see the clock's ticking. It's been 10 minutes, so apologies about that, guys. Anyway, wishing you well. Hope you've had a great week. The next couple of weeks or so, we're going to have some sort of lighter podcast topics, nothing too heavy. Appreciate last week was a bit heavy. Everyone was like, some people were like, I just couldn't listen to it, didn't like it. Other people obviously, enjoyed it. I suppose it's quite a juicy topic, isn't it? Anyway, without further ado, here is the interview that I did with Daryl and TalkRadio. See you later, guys. Speak next week. All right, cheers. Bye.
TalkRadio.
So the UK's biggest betting and gambling companies are to cease advertising on their products on TV and radio during the lockdown after MPs called for the move. The Betting and Gaming Council, which represents 90% of the UK's betting, gaming, bingo and casino companies, said that booked TV and radio slots will either feature safe gambling messages from charities or be removed entirely if contracts with broadcasters permitted them to do so. Let's take a look into this now and hear from somebody who has been affected by this. Again, we're leaning into human beings and their stories tonight. Alex Lewis is a former gambling addict. He's also just created a podcast all about it. Let's speak to him now. Alex, hi.
Hi.
Thank you for talking to us. I appreciate this is an incredibly difficult and personal exercise for you, Alex. So I'm really, really grateful to you for giving us your time.
No, thank you. A little bit nervous, but happy to share it if it helps others. Really. Good
man, absolutely. And as I say, don't be. I'll look after you. If there's anything that I ask you here as well that you don't want to answer, feel free to bat me away. Let's go back to the start then for you, Alex, because this started quite young in your later days of school in sixth form, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, about 18 years old.
And how did it start? What can you remember the sort of first times you gambled?
Basically, I think it was kind of getting drawn in as an 18-year-old. Like, basically, it was a bit like the In-Betweeners, and basically during a free period, we'd head down to the bookies to put bets on, and I just remember kind of getting hooked in because we do like horse racing bets, and I didn't have a clue. I'm from a place called Newbury, which is it's famous for the racetrack, and there's quite a good few sort of famous stables around the corner. So everyone's kind of got a link to the industry, the horse racing industry, and I didn't have a clue. So my mate was on one of the machines. I think they're called fixed odds betting terminals. But basically, he was on one of these machines, and he was playing roulette, and I didn't have a clue what it was about. But basically, he was like, "Oh yeah, all you got to do is you just got to put £1 in." And you bet on some numbers. And so I think any gambler or problem gambler will say the worst thing that can happen was basically, you win. And I won some money off that bet. I think I won £7.20, and it was just like boom. That was the opening, and it was just like, this is amazing,
I'm taken by how precisely you remember how much you won. I guess such an effect it had on you at that moment.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? You remember exact things. It's just like, I don't know. You sort of remember these details, like when when Princess Diana died, or where you were when 9/11 happened. It was obviously quite a significant thing for me. So yeah.
And do you remember the sort of early sensation of winning and how that made you feel?
I think obviously it made me feel like really happy. I don't know. It was exciting. It was fun. Something like completely different to anything I kind of experienced. And I think it was just the instant rush of like the gratification of like, I've just won some money. Of having no skill at all. Of course, it's like, if you look into it, they are just complete random chance games. So you can, basically a quick fix, a quick buck, basically.
And then, am I right in thinking that in your case, Alex, things stepped up a gear when you moved to London? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And where did that take you? What did gambling life become for you?
Well, it was basically out of boredom. I'd moved to London. I got a graduate job. I was still really young. I was only 22, and basically just being bored at lunch, would kind of head round to Stratton Ground in sort of Victoria, near St James's, and yeah, we basically sort of watch others bet. Obviously, you've got people that are, working in the city or whatever, and I sort of just sort of suss it all out. And it was the Olympic year as well, so it was quite a buzzy time to be in London. But I didn't really know many people at the time, so in the evening I would just sort of head out to the casinos and just started to sort of get a feel for it. It was kind of drawn in, lured into the casinos, and they're kind of flashing lights or whatever, and it was just like, I don't know, it just felt really cool. It just felt, I don't know, it felt quite trendy, really. Yeah.
And there's a lot made of the way that casinos treat clienteles and how that does sort of entice them in.
Well, I think I felt a bit like a king, It was sort of like free drinks, and you could get free food, and I don't know, it just seemed to be quite a glamorous place. People were kind of dressed smartly, and I think I was just sort of lured in, and it was quite a social place. People sort of talking, and you could sort of build up relationships with like the dealers, and they were kind of just normal people, but they would wear like, next to nothing, if you're the girls wouldn't wear much, and you don't know, you were kind of attracted to them. They would give you attention, and you would sort of get, you kind of get lured in, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they know what they're doing, don't they? Absolutely. Yeah. 2014 was quite a defining year for you as well, then, wasn't it, Alex?
Yes, it was. Was quite a bad year for me financially. Basically, kind of got really kind of heavily involved in like betting at casinos and starting to lie to housemates, and I started to kind of get onto like online gambling. So it was kind of getting pretty heavy. There was one time, and this is a true story, by the way. I'm not trying to sort of dramatise or anything, but basically, I was at a casino. It was in central London, and at the time, I'd just won a load of money, like one of my biggest winnings. You always remember the big ones, but I won a load of money, and basically, in the background, I asked someone, I was like, "Hang on, is that a live band playing?" And they were like, "Yeah." It was it was the song "Wanna Be Your Lover," and it was by Prince. And Prince, the actual Prince, was playing in the casino, and I was just completely like glazed over and was just didn't even care. It was just like, oh, okay, cool, and just went straight back to the table. I should have, with hindsight, like you should have gone and checked that out, being a musician and stuff. But yeah, it's just nuts, absolutely nuts.
Which sort of, I suppose that kind of plays to how much of a grip it had on you. I mean, that is an enormous moment that is happening that you are quite happy to let go by, because of the grip that the gambling has on you. Yeah,
I mean, it was. I think if you look into it a little bit more, which I kind of have done. I've done a podcast recently just talking about my addiction, and kind of I looked into the research behind things, and problem gamblers, they've actually seen that the levels of dopamine are pretty much the same, whether you win or you're just participating, but the levels of the impact it has on the brain is kind of the same. So it really is that like thrill of the chase. So if you see like signs that will say, stop when the fun stops, it's pretty hypocritical. But for a problem gambler, that's a problem, because even when you're participating, it's an addiction. So you kind of get hooked in. So yeah, when crazy things like, Prince is playing in the background, you could have given me pretty much anything, and I would have still just gone, yeah, great, let me just get back to the table. I mean, I would spend hours on these tables and never really ever get asked to leave. It was just nuts, absolute bonkers.
Yeah. And there's a responsibility there on the casinos, isn't there? Did you get the sense that at any point you were being looked after?
I mean, I was getting looked after well in terms of gifts, and I would get sort of points on my cards and stuff like that. But in terms of like looked after as someone that was perhaps having a problem, no, not at all, not one bit.
Just talk us through, Alex, the strain that began to have on your personal life as well, and your mental well-being.
I think at the time I was just obviously quite at the time, obviously, it's quite hard because you would display quite normal behaviour, and that's the thing about gambling. It's like the invisible addiction. So actually what was happening was obviously like mentally that was just, you know, a massive strain. It was like obviously financially just, you know, completely strangled by overdraft debts and stuff like that. But also obviously just like underlying stress, feelings of like loss of self-worth, like complete shot of any kind of self-confidence, like just sort of then felt like a loser, like felt that I was worthless, and you know, and I guess probably, well, I did probably, slip into depression, and it just led to a very tough, weird time, looking back. So it had quite long-lasting effects, actually.
Yeah, and did it lead into other addictions for you as well?
Yeah, it did. It did. I don't feel very comfortable saying what, but
that's all right.
No, it did. It did. It did kind of head into other areas, shall we say? Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's all right. And eventually you reached out, didn't you, Alex, to get help? But the process of doing that is tough, isn't it? Having the confidence to do it.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, like, I think problem gamblers, like, you look at, I think I knew I had a problem. Like, I'd be the first to recognise it, but it's really hard to kind of accept that and then to kind of get the help, because you have this sort of mentality as a sort of, you know, big gambler that, right, I was the one that got myself into this mess. I'll be the one that kind of gets myself out. So I'll be the one that be able to, you know, if I've lost all this money, I'll chase my money to get it back out. So it just kind of, it reaches a point. I mean, I don't know. I think for a gambler to stop gambling, you know, the gambler has to want to stop. So it would just kind of, it came to a point where I was just like, right, I need to get help, basically. You know, this is nuts. So self-excluded from casinos, which was like one of the best things I did. Fair play. I'm pretty damning of the government, but and their policies and legislation. But one thing they did do, which was good, was they reduced the fixed odd betting terminals down to £2 in bookies, which was great. But yeah, I got help. I got some counselling, and I'm not saying that I'm completely, you know, like I'm completely free of everything and whatever. But no, it was one of the best things I did.
No, sure. And when you say you self-excluded from casinos, how does that work?
So basically, you ring the casino. I think I can't remember to be exact. It's quite a key thing that I can't remember. But I just remember ringing up the casino. I think there's like a helpline that they've got on one of their cards or whatever, and just rung up. Little did I know, actually, it's all of the casinos. So it's not just like one. So you can't just, you know, if you ring up, they will exclude you from every UK casino, which is great.
Yeah, evidently. If you were to try to tally up the financial cost of it, Alex, where does that bring you to?
I don't know exact figures, but I reckon it would be enough to put a deposit on a house. I left London. I had to move back home with my parents with debts of around £7,000, a couple of overdrafts. But yeah, throughout my time through my 20s doing this, I think it's into the thousands, basically.
And as well as that, there's obviously a personal cost as well, isn't there, that you have to consider?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, it's just like loss of relationships, loss of friendships, like the strain it puts on, like your close family, you know, your mental well-being. It's pretty devastating, to be honest with you. Pretty devastating. Yeah.
We talked a little bit about some of the structures that are in place in places like casinos, for example, that work to entice you in and to keep you there. And obviously, we're talking in the context of this ban on advertising during the coronavirus lockdown period. How much of an impact did advertising have on you, Alex? Is that even possible to answer?
It's a really good question, Daryl. I mean, I don't know if I could answer that really. But I mean, obviously, you can see that TV and radio promote gambling or betting companies, and you know, it's not just like casinos; it's like bingo and obviously like the lottery and other forms of betting and whatnot. I think it's just it's quite impossible to really kind of to bolt this one down into an answer. But I guess it's part of the culture, isn't it? It's yeah, I don't know. I can't say what direct impact that had on me, but I'd imagine, I would get like leaflets from the casinos through, posted through to my door. I'd get text messages. I would get emails. So, it's not just the stuff that you see on the TV and radio, but it's the personalised sort of advertising and marketing really as well.
And you said that the science, particularly around how winning and losing makes you feel the same, the dopamine levels being relatively similar. Some of those initiatives, like when the fun stops, stop. You're sort of arguing there, Alex, that in a sense that's perhaps redundant.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's pretty hypocritical, to be honest with you. I mean, there's approximately, if you look at some of the stats, there's like, they say in the UK, there's 2 million people at risk from problem gambling, and nearly 500,000 of them are problem gamblers. So yeah, and if you look at MRI scans, that if you just have to kind of go onto YouTube and look at some videos, that you'll see that the results are quite evident that a problem gambler gets the same buzz from losing, which is just sort of screwed up. It's completely screwed up. So a quote unquote normal person will have a massive spike in dopamine, and then when they lose, it's like this feeling of dejection or whatever, and that was rubbish, and I won't do that again. But a problem gambler will have the same hits of dopamine, and I don't know. I just advise any of your listeners, if they're interested, to just check it out. It's quite hard. I'm not a scientist, so
yeah, no, but
they perhaps have to have a look at that.
No, your anecdotal evidence there makes perfect sense, Alex. It really does. And the reason that I asked you those three questions in quick succession is trying to get a sense of, from your perspective, what doesn't work as action. That sort of sloganeering element, which is obviously, it's not going to do any harm, I wouldn't have thought, but whether or not it's effective or not has to have a question mark over it. Whether the advertising ban is effective or not, but certainly direct action, you said, like the government limiting the fixed odds betting machines to £2 a spin. I think they were at £100 a spin back when you'd have been playing in those early days, to £2 a spin. You're saying that actually that's the stuff that has the most impact.
I think it was good. I think it was good because, as I say, you can lose hundreds of pounds in one go. You could potentially lose £300 in a minute. However, I mean, I would say that that's great. I mean, obviously they've been quite reactive. They're kind of damned if they do, they're damned if they don't. But obviously then you can see behaviour, or consumers' behaviour, then moving perhaps to other places. It might move to online betting, for example, which in my case was evident. I just sort of moved things, betting lots of money online. And also you can still play other sort of slot games that are still, they'll be only a £2 stake, but they're still you're still betting lots of money into. You can, the wins and the losses are still pretty big. So yeah, I mean, it was good, but I think there's still stuff that they can do.
And no easy answer, I suppose, is what we can conclude with that. How are you, Alex, now?
I'm pretty good. As I say, I released a podcast on Sunday, and I sort of kind of started this vlog by complete kind of chance, and or more out of kind of boredom and entertainment. And anyway, basically, good. I've had a lot of support from friends and family that have got in touch, and I think there's nothing to be ashamed of, and I'm a lot better now mentally. There's the roller coaster of emotions have kind of stopped, which for a while took a little while to kind of get used to. But it's good now to be kind of plain sailing, and I just to wash my hands of it. Really, it's quite nice. It's quite nice. So no, I'm pretty good, Daryl. I'm pretty good, thanks.
Good plan. Well, it's been a real pleasure to talk to you, Alex. Thank you so much for talking about something that's incredibly difficult. It's not an easy thing to do, but it is immensely helpful in terms of building a picture and supporting others as well. So thank you very much for having the courage to do that. It's a courageous thing to do.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
bless him, Alex Lewis, who is a former gambling addict. If you want to find out more about Alex, by the way, he's got a podcast available that you can listen to. Just search YouTube, Alex Lewis Gambling Podcast, or the internet as well. I think it's on Spotify and various other platforms as well. If you want to hear a deeper dive into his amazing story. Marcus says, what a remarkably brave man. Eileen says, wish this guy all the best. So brave. Brave is coming around quite a bit. Paula23224 says, wonderful hearing Alex in good spirits. Glad he's turned his life around. So hard for some. We do not consider how difficult it is for those people. Just be quick to judge. Yeah, I think it's kind of hard to disagree, isn't it, really? And actually, once you turn your thinking on that to the empathy element, it paints a very different picture, and how you work your way through it and fix those problems start to become very, very different. The same can be said, actually, for sex work and sex workers, and we're going to talk about that next.
Sex workers? Daryl, come on. Oh, my God. All right, nice one, guys. See you next week. Take care. Ciao, Bella. Oh, and don't forget to send the questions in. Submit questions about gambling. Submit. Okay, that really is it now. Okay, bye.